Good afternoon, folks. Today we are going to be looking at the hotbar again, but for the implementation of the hotbar, we really need to look at all the systems that are going to be affected by it. And one of those systems is going to be our key binding. Okay? So, with that in mind, this is our key binding, and we need to restructure the way that key binding works. Okay? Now, what we can do is we can have a look at our hotbar, and the hotbar works here. Okay, we have our hotbar for buildings, we have our hotbar for connectors. So this part all works. But what if the player doesn't want it to be keys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. Say, for example, they want F1, F2, F3, etc. Okay? And we need to be able to facilitate that. So, with that in mind, last night we had a slightly different way of doing things, but now we have our interface as it was yesterday, but we now have a different way of doing the calling of the interface. Okay, which I'm going to show you in a second. It was done last night, but the problem was that when we were calling it, we were basically setting ourselves up for a fall. Okay? And we need to see where this is called from. So find references and then do this, and it's in our FE controller. Okay, so originally we were getting the this is not it. I need to find out where we're actually calling this from, and it's not there, and it's not there. And we're looking here on this event graph. So originally what we were doing was converting this to an integer, right? But I realized last night that if we did that, say the player changed it to a J, well, that J is not going to convert to an integer. So, obviously, that gives us a problem. So, basically, I had to amend our basically I had to amend the hotbar actions and reset them up. Hey Ryan King, how are you, mate? Hello. So we've had to set up these with individual keys, right? Now these keys do not relate to the actual keyboard keys. They relate to the place on the hotbar where that key is. So therefore this relates to 0.5, or sorry, relates to array number 5 slot, okay, and not the actual key, right? And that's going to allow us to change our key bindings, okay? So in our key binding screen, this is what we have, and we're going to have to change it, okay? So I'm going to have to show you basically where we're going to have to change it. Yeah, I got a lot of that. I actually think sometimes that I have become an ASMR, whatever that stands for, channel, because a lot of people comment on the fact that they like my voice for some, I don't know, for some reason. Anyway, so what we're going to have to do is in our options, we have all our settings for display, for visuals, and we have it for key bindings. And you'll notice that we have all this good stuff, and it relates at the moment to the correct buttons, okay? But it doesn't fit on the screen. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to basically put this into a scroll box and then have different sections, for example, for camera movement, for actions, which is going to be inventory craft, resupply ship, and then we're going to have hotbar, actions, etc, etc, right? So as I said, it is hotbar part 3, but we're working on back-end systems that are going to have to be implemented so that everything works for the hotbar, okay? So what we have to do is we have to look at our options. In fact, we don't. We've got our main, and we have our GP buttons, and then we have our options, and in the designer here is our widget switcher. This is the buttons that are controlling our widget switcher, which is basically these buttons here: audio, display, visuals, key bindings, and game colors. Okay, and here I'm going to split this up so that you guys can see it better. Interesting, Ryan King. What's interesting, if you don't mind telling me? Right, so our first thing in the widget switcher is our audio. Then, so if I click on audio, you'll see the audio section of the widget switcher. Then if I click on the display, it shows you the display part. Then this shows you the visuals part, and then this is the part that we are interested in. Okay, so we are going to have to redesign this part here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try and get it into a scroll box. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually, we can just wrap this in a scroll box. Okay. And this is going to be full, that's fine. And what we'll do is we'll actually switch on the scroll box, always show. And you can see there that we now have our little scrolly thing. Scroll bar, I think the technical term. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at this to make sure that we indeed have our scroll bar, which we do. However, it's not working. But that's cool. We can live with that for now. So we are going to have to say that our scroll box in this vertical box is going to have to be a certain size, right? And this could be quite difficult, or maybe not. Size Y, let's say 500. And it would appear that our scroll box isn't in the right place, right? And this is where we get to the fact that I always call this widget wrangling. Okay, so what we're going to do is we've got this canvas panel, okay, and then we've got a vertical box which is kind of right, and I think what we'll do here is we shall start naming our stuff to the correct thing. Okay, which kind of means that this vertical box, hi Dante, how are you, mate? So we are basically, we may need to do a bit of figuring out here, but we'll do this in the meantime. So that's looking okay with what we're doing. Right, and then what we're going to do here is there's something a bit weird. Right, this vertical box probably doesn't need to exist. Right, I'm trying not to muck this up as best I can. Okay. And it looks to me that we probably need that header, but we're probably going to use something else, but we want it into a sort of arrangement that we want. Right, and then we can delete these. We'll leave that spacer, right? But these are now on the wrong level, so we need to drag these up a bit and get them into the right place. Okay. So that's more like what we want with the buttons being here, right? So if we take a look at this, the best way, Dante, is to use something that is similar and then mold it to what you want. So if it's a third person view, just use the third person controller and then change it to what you require. If it's first person, do the same. If it's something else, do that. Like if it's for, what's your game? Is it a first person, third person? Right, so we're going to take a look at options again and then take a look at key bindings. And that's all good. Kinda. And all we can see here is actions. I'm guessing that we don't want to put now what's this? Right, okay, forget that. Right, so we're adding to action bindings. Action binding possessed. Right, so what we'll do is we'll say action binding keys, right? And then we're going to change this to key okay, we're not. Right, we're not going to do that. We're going to say hotbar bindings. Okay. And then in our graph, we are not going to add it to this box, right? So what we're going to do is, this is not used at the moment, right? But we are going to use it, and we're going to use it for our if I can work a mouse for a minute. We're actually going to put it in there. So we're going to save that. And now isn't that looking better? And we can't scroll it yet for whatever reason. We'll worry about that in a minute. The main thing is to get this actually looking a bit better, which it is. So we'll escape that. And it's not there, it is in options. And what we need is for this scroll box to be a certain size. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it with a canvas panel. And for whatever reason, we can't scroll it very well, or scroll it at all in fact. I'm going to undo that. Right, now we've got our movement spacer, and it appears that our movement spacers are going to have to be a little bit bigger. Right, so what we'll do is we shall select all of our spacers, and then we'll set them all to 25. In fact, we're going to set them to 30. Okay. And that's weird. Right, okay, so that's the colors. Okay. Hey, Salur Mel. I hope I've pronounced your name right. Don't know if I have. Sounds good though. Right, so key bindings definitely looking better, although there's not a very good space here. Plus I'm getting a little bit meh about the colours. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this spacer, and then we're going to move it to there. And we're going to do the same here and move it to here. Save that. Then that should give us a better spacing between each of the sections. Yep, that's looking better. Okay. This is looking really good, in fact. I'm still a bit meh on these particular buttons here. Right, but it's all good. It's all good. I'll escape that. Now, I'm just wondering, what I'm going to do is something completely crazy and mental. Now, you can see that has got a particular size. And I'm just wondering if we actually need to put wrap this in a size box. Right, we're going to test it first. So we're going to save it, right? Then we're going to wrap this in a canvas panel. Now that's good. We like that. And this vertical box should be full size. That should be 0. That should be 0. Except it shouldn't be. Right, I'm really rubbish at doing this. So let's say this was -500, right? And we save that. Then we press play, options, key bindings, and this is still not the correct size. Okay. So we're going to undo that, then we're going to undo it again. Now this has to be a vertical box, right? But the thing is, we need to see how basically the other ones are set up. Right, you'll notice that this has got a scroll bar, right? And we can basically see how this one is set up. So we have that. Vertical box, that's fine, that's fine. Then this is anchored to the top. Then we have a canvas, 2 canvas panels, and then our scroll box. And then inside our scroll box we have a vertical box. And then we have our 3, yep, right, so we don't have the canvas panel. So this canvas panel can go, right? So we have vertical box, then yeah, we do have a canvas panel. Okay. So we'll so basically, oh, this is horrific. So let's have a look here. So we have a canvas panel. So let's do it. Right, let's undo that. I'm not happy with that at all. So this should go in here. Okay, and we're going to delete our scroll box. We are going to put it back in, but for the moment, right, we're basically going to copy what we've got in the other one. Right, in here basically. So CP, it should be auto full. Okay. Auto full is correct. Then we have a vertical box where we're going to set the anchors. And we have a header thing. Okay. So we can do a similar thing here. Right. And this is just a spacer. We can copy that. In fact, we can copy that. And this was what, 173? Call it 174. Now the question is, was that size to content, and it's this one, size to content, right? And now right, I'm going to rename this VB colors, right, so that we're not getting confused to which is which. And we now have a weird YouTube things going on where the views are like shooting up, but the number of people watching doesn't actually reflect that number. Right. So we've got vertical box, and then the first vertical box from VB colors basically has this, and this, right? So what we should actually do is do basically the same thing, right? We'll recreate the same thing. Except to make things correct, we say key bindings. Okay. And then basically we duplicate the spacer and drag it under there, and there we get a space in between, and now we get our actions. So from that point of view, our actions should now look exactly like this here. Alright, so we should not have two vertical boxes. Right, if we look at this, we should have our vertical box, which is right, and then we should have a canvas panel and another canvas panel, right? So we should wrap this with a canvas panel, and we should wrap that with a canvas panel, then we've got our vertical box, and we should drop that to here. Then we should delete that, and then our vertical box should be wrapped with a scroll box. Right? And now what we can do is we can basically copy the settings from one into another. So our outermost is going to be fill, fill, fill. Right, so this one is going to be auto fill, fill. Then this one is going to be slightly different. We're going to take and copy the anchors from that, and we're going to paste them in here, and then our numbers from here, one five five six four four four. So we're going to say 1556 444. Okay. Now, is that sized to content? I don't know. We're going to save that for now. So we're going to check this and see if this is sized to content, and it's not. And we're going to see what we've got at the moment. Alright. And something's not quite right. So we now go to our scroll box, and I'm going to suggest that this scroll box is on full. So we're going to go full, 0 and 0. We're going to save that. Then we're going to come over and have a look again. I do like a lot of testing, by the way. And now we're talking. Look at this. Look at this indeed. For some reason, Hotbar 4 is down here. Don't know why. But we can look at that. In fact, we'll look at it now. And it's basically because it's down there for some unknown reason. Okay, whatever. Alright, so we'll just move that up a bit. Oops. I just moved the wrong one. Right, so we'll move them out of the way. Move that up to there. And we can drag these down here. Then redo these a bit. We can of course do it this way. Okay, so we've reconfigured that. Look at that lovely, lovely thing. We now have this all set up nicely. Okay. So this now means that we can change the hotbar bindings. And the reason that we need to get all this set up properly, as I said, this is back-end systems, is that if they do change like this number here, okay, say they were to change 5, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, what it means is this is no longer 5. This is whatever they've changed it to. So this might have to end up saying F1, F2, F3, F4, blah, blah, blah. Or it could, you know, be QWERTY, blah, 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 blah. Right? But we need to reflect what the keys are actually saying for each of our things. Okay? And that is the reason for getting all of our key bindings in a row and working properly. Now we do need to check that they're working properly, but that's going to happen in a second when I actually test it, right? But action binding keys, which is fine because I renamed that, and that's all good. And if you're enjoying the stream, guys, hit the like and subscribe button. I'm just going to go for a quick cigarette break, which will take me 2 minutes. So check out the description for my Discord, you're welcome to join, and also links to my Patreon and my previous game on Steam. If you want to help and support the channel, even just adding my game to your wish list would be a help and appreciated. So I shall be back in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere, guys. Okay guys, we're back, and back to the problem. So we have our rather beautiful and lovely hotbar buttons, but when we make our hotbar buttons, the widget, in fact, we need these values and what they are to be passed into our hotbar. Okay? Which is going to be quite cool if it works, and not so cool if it doesn't. Okay? So, from that point of view, we want to kind of use this code here, and we want to find out what the button is, right? And it is from this break action key mapping, it's going to come from there. Okay, so we are going to use very similar code to this. In fact, it's going to be a blooming copy of it. So this is going to be in the FE controller, okay? And actually, no, it's not. It's actually going to be in our hotbar. So when the hotbar creates itself, it's actually going to do this. Okay, so in hotbar main, okay. Remember guys, I am making this up in my head as I go along, so there might be some design quirks, shall we say, early on. But what we're going to do is we're going to say array keys, right? And it's going to be a string, and it's going to be an array, and we're going to have it, well, it's going to do it first, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to have a function, and it's going to be get key bindings, okay? And we are going to go back to our this menu here, and we're probably going to have to hard code this. We could find a sneaky way around it. Right? And what we're going to do is we're going to copy this. In fact, we're going to copy this part here. And we're going to copy that Then we are going to go into our hotbar menu and we're going to paste that in here. Right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a sequence, and this is going to be taken into account that we're not going to do 0 first. Okay, we're going to do 0 last. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a local variable, and it's going to be index, and that is going to be an integer, and it's not going to be that, right? And in the first instance we're going to do a for loop, right? A straight up for loop of 1 to 9. Or do we do it? No, we do it 1 to 10. Right, we're going to try this at 1 to 10. Yeah, I don't think this is going to work. I think we're going to have to do it 1 to 9. And then we're going to do 0 on the second. Right, so the first number right, so that's fine. And we're going to do that. Oops. And we're going to do that. Right, so we've got to make a string here. Right, so we're not going to use camera direction because we don't use it anyway. And this is going to be make a literal name, right? Then we're going to have this to string, right? And then are we going to do add, or is it going to be plus, or is it going to be concatenate? Apparently we're going to append, right? And this one will actually go in here, and this will be here, and then we'll be doing hotbar, except I think it's hotbar like that. Then that will go in there, right? And then we're going to be doing our R keys. We're going to get that. And in actual fact, we'll save that for now. But we're going to be adding our default values Or are we? No, we're not. Right? So we are basically going to say add and that's going to have to be add unique. Right, now this should be very interesting to see if this actually works or not. And in our options, text key selector, and it's coming, well, it's not coming to there. It's coming from the key. Right, now we did this the other night. So it's not there, it's hotbar. So we need to get this into a string, which we had a real amount of trouble with last night. Or the other night at least. Right, so that's not happening. And that's not going to go in there. How did I get this the other night? Can anybody remember how I got this the other night? Oh, it was display name. Right, if I do that, get key display name, and that goes in there. Right? And so we save that. And we go back to our event graph, right? And in here, we get the keys. Okay. And then when we do the weird stuff, all right, this is text key here. We don't use that. What we do is we grab the keys from here then as a test we can say get a copy and we plug that in there. and then this goes into here. Then this can go, right? So if I now save that, and what we can do is test this out now, right? We can change a key and see if it actually works. So I'm going to change key 5 to, let's say, F7. Actually, I changed it to F9. Whatever, right? So, okay. Back. Okay. Go to continue. And crash. Awesome. So in effect, what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to start this as a new game. Right? But nothing like a good little crash to keep us feeling good. Need to find out where it actually crashed, to be honest, but I don't know if I'll ever find that out. Options and FEM controller. Don't know what we lost there. Hopefully not a lot. It'll be interesting to find out though. Right, while it's loading up. While it's loading up, let's take a look at the football scores, shall we? Anybody that's interested, Italy 0, England 0, 61 minutes gone. Let's see if there's any other interesting ones. Oh, Hungary are beating Germany 1-0 away from home. And to be quite honest, there's not that many other interesting games being played. Yeah. Well, there we go. Hey, Mr. Nook, how are you? Right, so we shall open these and we'll see how bad a crash it was. Not bad, apparently, because basically this never loads up fast if it's been a bad crash. Go back to your graph, all our code is still there, which is good, right? Now what we'll do is we'll add a breakpoint right there. And we shall press play. And the interesting thing here is if our options are going to say F9 or not. And they don't. So that's bad. And we'll change it to Y. Now, that save settings doesn't actually do anything, right? But if we go back in now, this isn't saving. Right, so that's obviously not very good. So I've got to presume that none of our stuff is saving. Okay. Nope. Right, so there must be something in the code here that I haven't implemented. So it's not saving. Okay. So we need to take a look at that. Right. Now this code is taken out of a previous game of mine. So there may be something that I haven't copied across properly, which is a definite possibility. So there's fill key bindings, update colors, set colors. Right, let me just open my other system up. So we're going to have a look at one of either two projects here that I know work. And I believe this is the best one. That's not going to work because I've deleted it from there. And I suppose we could open it from here. Alright, so we're going to have a look to see what we change in the game, or the code that updates the button. Now we should actually have a look at that, right? Because if we look at key binding, right, we have our button here, and if we view this, we can see that that is changing. But what we need to do if the key is in use, we check to see if the right. So if the select a key, we check to see if it's in use, right? If not, we set it to the last selected key. And then what we're going to have to do from there is find out what our other code is saying. And it doesn't appear as if I am actually loading up that other project. Alright. So we are going to do actually that should still be there. Yeah, there we go. Right. So we can check the code in this other one that works, and obviously we've missed a little bit of code. Okay. And we have on key selected, which is what we're actually looking at right now. Right, but the part we need to look at is the actual saving. And we're on 79% of that, which is all fine. And once this loads up, we can take a look to see where we actually save the values. Okay. And the code works in exactly the same way, so this should not be a problem. Once this loads up, we can take a look. And it's probably loading shaders, as it always is. But the way well, just to describe the way I think it, or I thought it worked, obviously it doesn't, is when we actually click on a key binding and we select something, then it actually updates the game settings, right? It does it at the actual time, but apparently it doesn't, right? And clicking save makes no difference. So if I go like that and go like that, they are still the same. But if I go back, right, and then go to options, then go to here, then it returns back. So it's not saving properly. So we're going to have to take a look at that and see why that is. And take it from there. Anybody in the stream right now, can you tell me if the stream is okay? Because I'm getting messages saying that YouTube is not receiving enough video. It might be because of me loading up this other project. Or it's having a little moment to itself. But you guys can let me know if you don't mind. So basically what I'm saying is there's nothing in here, right? How much time do I think this will take you? Well, that's a difficult question to answer, right? The bare backbone systems, well, you've been watching it, Dante, right? So you'll know that a lot of the back-end systems are all working, like the research tree, the recipes, the buildings themselves, the conveyor belts are all working. All of that stuff is working, right? And I think that is the most complete. But, and here's the thing, to get it to the state I want, it's going to require some financial support, because I can't create the assets that I think the game deserves. So basically I'm going to have to in some way pay for those, and that's just the way things are. So I'm going to have a lot of the programming done. I'm just having a look at the other project, by the way, to find on the HUD where I actually do the updating of the key bindings, right? So I don't think it's a matter of programming that's going to take all the time. It's going to be with other assets and stuff. right? So I am now in my project that's actually on Steam, and this is the key bindings, right? So I need to actually see where these change, right? And on key selected, we're doing this, and then we've got this key in use, and if we've got false, we've got save key mappings, right? So it's exactly what I thought. Okay, but this is actually for the axis mappings and not the action mappings, right? So I actually need the one that does the action mappings. But it does seem to be the same one. Right? And you'll notice that the fill key bindings is in the main menu, which is fine. But the problem is action mappings. Right? I need to know whether it's an action mapping or an axis mapping. Right, now we have key in use, and we have that in ours, so I'm going to move this to the side a bit. Okay, and we do have key in use, right? And this is just for axis, apparently. Okay. Now, I'm just wondering, if I do this and add a breakpoint here, I'm wondering if this also pulls action mappings. Now, I don't think it should, but will it is the question, right? So if I hit F6, it didn't even go in there, right? And that's understandable, right? Because that code is not there. So what we need to do is say key in use and gradually build this up. Okay, and we do have an action. Right, so the interesting thing is going to be if it outputs. So we add a breakpoint, right? And if it's in use, we want to see it. right? So we'll say 4. Okay. Get input settings. And that's basically saying nothing. So, okay, so we've got something, which is an array name. Right? And that's going to show us nothing again. Right? Apparently this is false. It is going to come back with a key, and key is in use is false, which is untrue. Right? So if we step over, which it's not allowing me to do, so I'm kind of getting the feeling that this is going to crash because this whole thing has hung. Apparently yes. Right. And this is trying to load this up for some reason. Let's get into our task manager here. And this shouldn't be loading, so I don't know why it's loading. And what we're going to do is I'm going to exit that. And I don't know why it is loading this at all. Obviously, right, so that should be us now. And I don't know why I clicked on marketplace either. I'm losing my mind. Right, I'm just going to catch up here, Dante, while I'm loading up project again. So let me just read your comments. How much do you think you'll spend on the assets? That's going to depend on how much support I get, basically. Working on a project with other people, number one, isn't necessarily the best idea, right? Because it isn't a simple equation where you can say adding, like, let's say one person takes 2 hours to do a project, right? In Unreal Engine, it isn't as simple as saying adding another person is going to half the time. Right? Now, it's going to depend on a lot of things. It's going to depend what that person's speciality is. It's going to be a lot better if that person does the opposite of what you do. Okay? So if they're just working on assets, graphical assets, then yes, they're going to save a heck of a lot of time. Okay? But if you add another programmer, unless you've got a systematic way of working, then it ain't going to make a heck of a lot of difference, and in fact will probably give you more problems than it actually solves. Right? Now that's not saying it can't be done, but when you work in a team in programming on a project, then you need a technical lead, where the technical lead makes all the technical decisions, right? So they will outline exactly how everything fits together. That'll be passed out as a technical spec document to the programmers, and then the programmers know exactly what they've got to implement, right? So this is where the code monkey thing comes in, right? Because when you're programming as part of a team, you make 0 decisions, right? You will basically just write code that has already basically been written for you, right, as a technical spec. So you will be given like a class, and it will just say, here's the parameters, here's the inputs, here's the outputs, go and do it, here's the calculations, right? You will make no decisions on what your code does. Your code will do exactly what the technical lead has determined it's going to do, right? Which becomes a bit of a problem, because all indie developers want to make decisions over how their code works, over how the game looks, over how the game should function, etc., etc. And the minute you introduce any kind of teamwork, then that has to stop immediately, right? Or none of your classes or your blueprints are going to fit together, because everybody's going to do it their own way. They'll not have any, they'll not think of any way to plug all these things together. So you're basically going to end up writing 3 different games that do the same thing, right? Or you're going to have 3 different parts of a game that just don't fit together, right? And I'm afraid that's just the way it is, right? And as far as indie developers go, as I said, all of them want some input into the, creative part of the project, but working as a part of the team takes that away from the programmers. Right? It's like saying to an artist, right? Can you draw me something? Well, yeah, I can. Right? It's got to look exactly like this. And that just takes away all the creative part, and basically probably why they do it, right? So, not saying it's impossible, but if you put a team together, you need a structure to the team. Then you need one person basically as a team lead, who is going to basically write the technical spec of your game, so that the programmers can code in a way that everything fits together. So hopefully, Lord, why not use Unreal Engine 5? Okay, I've answered this several times, but I don't mind answering it again. Okay, Unreal Engine 5. I was watching a guy on Twitch earlier, and I think it crashed about 5 times. right? So it's obviously not stable enough yet. Number two, there isn't that much of a difference between Unreal Engine 4 and Unreal Engine 5. The difference is, or the differences are, you've got Nanite and you've got Lumen. And basically Unreal Engine 5 is Unreal Engine 4.27 with Nanite and Lumen, except it's less stable. So that is why I don't use Unreal Engine 5. As I said, it's going to gradually get more stable and stuff, and as Dante just said, I can just upgrade the project to Unreal Engine 5. But I find Unreal Engine 4 far more stable. Having said that, I've just crashed twice, but that's because I'm doing weird stuff with input settings. So I'm going to give it a pass for that. There's other reasons as well, right? You've got a lot of plugins don't work, right? Now that's going to become a less and less problem, obviously. But for example, on a previous game that's on Steam that I made, the plugin that I use for the leaderboards only works up to 4.25, right? So I had to use 4.25. So as I said, another reason, but if you start off in Unreal Engine 5, it's going to get better and better for you, right? If you're not getting too many crashes or you're not using any plugins, then yeah, go ahead. Much of the same, like all my code here or all my blueprints will work in Unreal Engine 5. There's basically no difference. Or even if they won't work, it'll be a minimum fix, right? As far as the blueprints and the code goes, there's nothing earth-shatteringly different about 4.27 and 5. Right? Because 5 is based on 4.27. So there's my answer, but if you like using Unreal Engine 5, go ahead and use it. If you're just learning, perfect, just learn on Unreal Engine 5. Right? And thanks for the question, Ward, because it's killed a lot of time while this Unreal Engine sorts itself out for this crash. So yeah, well, otherwise I'd probably been sitting here just scratching my nose. And in fact, I'm going to use this time to go and grab a cigarette. So think of another question, Ward, for when I come back, if this still isn't opening or doing jack. And I shall be back in 2 minutes. Okay guys, I'm back. Cigarette successfully smoked. Dante, you're not the first person to have asked. It would depend. If it's first person shooter, no, absolutely not. Right? If it's a multiplayer game, don't know. Oh, we've got it opening now. It would have to be something that interested me, right? Because people tend to lose interest if they're not even interested in at the first point. It's a difficult thing to sort of quantify. So it's hard to give an answer unless I knew what the project actually was, what the type of game was, what you're actually trying to achieve with it. Ward, if you want to look, I don't get it. Could you elaborate on that statement a bit? I've just loaded this again, haven't I? What an idiot. Okay, so we need to close this down immediately. Right, here's a tip for you guys, right? If your game won't save, you've got 2 copies of it open, right? So if I'd have tried to save anything there, it just wouldn't have saved. It would have kept giving me an error. So sometimes you don't notice that you've got it open twice, right? Because it'll be part of this, except it'll have 3 and it'll have like another one of these, right? So if you ever come across the fact that your game isn't saving or it's giving you an error when you like do a compile or a save, then that's the problem, okay? So hopefully another little bit gem of advice there. Right, so I'm going to open up this old one again. Now, as we noticed with our previous thing, when we used the key in use, right, we got an error, basically. And we got a crash. Now, I don't know why it got to here. Okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a breakpoint. Well, not a breakpoint. I'm going to split this up so that we don't return anything. Right? But what we're going to do is, if these are equal, then I'm going to get the display name and print it out. Right? So I'm going to get display name and I'm going to do a print string on it. Well, actually, we'll just do print string. Okay. And we'll actually do an append. And we'll add loads of space so it's in the middle a bit. Right. And then we'll plug that in there. we shall plug that in there. Then what we'll do is we shall give this a duration of 20 and we'll make it white. Then we'll save that. We'll do a save all. And then we'll try it again. And if we go to options and then to here, and this is our hotbar bindings, remember, right? And that didn't do anything. Oh yeah, because the key isn't in use. And that didn't do anything either, so I can only assume that our saving was screwed up. Except it wasn't. Right. So if we come to here, add breakpoint, and we don't actually need that, so we will print it out. Go to options and we select 4, and that didn't do anything, which is kind of right actually, right? Because if it's only checking access keys and not action keys, then it's never going to get to here, because it's just going to go nope, 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 right? So it's never going to equal that, and it's never going to get to there, right? Now the interesting part is we would have to do the same thing for, basically what we'd have to do here is check the action mappings, right? So key in use is going to have to change, right? So it's going to have to be key in use access, except we're going to have to spell it right. And these are all the, you see all these little things here? This is the difficult part of development. It's all well and good working on the fancy dance stuff, running on walls or whatever, but this is the nitty gritty. Okay, Dante. Right, working on all the little fancy gameplay things is all well and good, right? But it's not where 90% of the work goes. The 90% of the work goes in doing all these not very fancy, not very exciting things, right? And for this we need get action names, right? And so the axis can go, and as I said, now we have to get this, and with this we get action mapping name, mapping by name. Okay, and then we're going to have to do a for each on that, but that is going to go here, right? And then this is going to be for each loop. Okay, and then we're going to be dragging this to here. Okay, apparently we're not. That's going to go to there. Then that's break. So this is going to be break action mapping, right? And then we're going to be doing key to there. We'll delete that. We'll move this along a bit. We'll delete that. We'll move this back. Oh, computer stopped. Alright. Streamlabs is having a moment to itself. Right, we can do that. Then we'll pull that over a bit. We'll do that. Then we'll join this up to here. Right, we'll leave that as it is. I'm going to compile that. I'm going to save all. Right. And we're going to have to work out a way to do this. Right. So we're going to need some changes in the system here of how we do this, because we need to know whether it's an action or whether it's an axis. The axis basically is your forward back with a -1 to 1, you know, like your mouse movement, if you're moving the mouse, or if you're moving like forward or back, blah blah. That's an axis mapping, okay? And an action mapping is just like pressing a button, like pressing 5, okay? So obviously when you look at your project settings, right, if we look in here, you'll see how I've set this up, right? So like you've got action mappings and then you've got axis mappings, right? So if I minimize these a bit, you'll see that our action mappings are like left click or cancel or rotate object or rotate. Now that is just rotating 90 degrees, right? That isn't actually using axis, right? So, or hitting, if you want to open inventory, craft, if you want to open the trade screen, these are actions, right? But the movement of the camera is axis, okay? Camera zoom is axis, rotate the camera is axis, right? So that's the difference. And you'll notice that they're saved in different places, right? Which was these things here. The actions are in action names. The axis are in axis names. So you need to know which one each of these things are, right? So basically, when I go in here and look at key bindings, these are actions, right? That and that. Movement is axis, right? Hotbar bindings are actions, right? So basically I need a way to know that if I hit one of these, I check against axis mappings, right? And for the likes of these, I check against action mappings, and for the top ones as well, right? But I'm actually going to have to do both, because you can set an action mapping to an axis mapping, right? So like, for example, I've got inventory craft as I, okay? But say the player wants to change his movement, instead of WSAD, to be IJKM, right? I still have to check this to see if this one is used, even though it's an action mapping, right? So as I'm hopefully showing you guys, it's this type of thing that takes 90% of the work, right? Because my philosophy is that it should work exactly like the player should expect, okay? So if I click on this and give it another axis mapping, I need to check that it's not mapped anywhere else, right? And basically that's the point, okay? And on that, guys, if you've enjoyed the stream, hit the subscribe and like. And for more information, look at the description. You can join my Discord. You're welcome to join. And if you want to support the channel, the easiest way and the cheapest way is to click on the link to my game on Steam and add it to your wish list. If you want to financially support, then you can obviously buy it, or you can take a look at the Patreon, in which case you will get your name in the credits of the game, and you can also get your name on a building in the game. So with that, have a great afternoon, and if I don't see you again at the weekend, have a great weekend, and I shall see you tonight at 8 PM. I shall probably be working on this to get this working again and saving this stuff. And this has been trying to get the back end working for Hotbars. Bye bye for now.